Welcome back to Echoes and Paths, where we explore the winding roads of faith, growth, and what it means to truly live with purpose. I'm so glad you're joining me for today's episode, When the Wait Feels Endless. If you're listening on TikTok, make sure to check out our YouTube link in the bio, and for everyone, please like, subscribe, and share if these conversations encourage you or someone you love. So, let's talk about waiting. Those seasons when it just feels like life is on hold. Maybe you're praying for a breakthrough, an answer, or a promise to finally come through. But it feels like the heavens are silent, and each day stretches longer than the last. What strikes me about waiting is how it can feel like nothing's happening, or even like we've been forgotten. That's interesting, because deep down, we know waiting is part of our journey. But living through it? That's a different experience. Here's what I keep coming back to. Waiting is not punishment. It's preparation. All through Scripture, we see that God's timing is rarely our timing, but it's always for a reason. Think about Joseph. He had a dream as a teenager, but he spent years in slavery and prison before God raised him up for his purpose. The waiting wasn't wasted. It shaped his character, deepened his dependence, and prepared him to lead. Or look at David, anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, but waiting over a decade and facing hardship before actually stepping into the promise. There's this tendency to treat waiting as a vending machine moment. We put in our faith, punch a button, and expect instant results. But God's timing goes deeper. He's more interested in maturing us than just giving us what we want when we want it. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually God's way of protecting us from something we can't see, or of growing us into the person who can handle what we're asking for. And that brings me to something pretty powerful. God often does his deepest work in silence. The longer the wait, the quieter he seems. But that doesn't mean he's absent. Far from it. In the Psalms, David talks about waiting on God with hope and expectation, even when it feels like nothing is changing. He says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord." Psalm 27:14. That's not passive. Waiting is actually an act of trust. It means believing that even in what feels like a wilderness, God is working behind the scenes, weaving together things we can't yet see. Let's pause for a moment. If this resonates, make sure to like, subscribe, and share Echoes and Paths, especially if you know someone else who's stuck in a season of waiting. TikTok listeners, the full conversation is waiting for you on YouTube. The link is right in the bio. Back to waiting. One of the hardest things is surrendering our own timelines. Proverbs 3:5-6 really sums it up. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Sometimes waiting is less about what we're waiting for and more about becoming someone who trusts, hopes, and finds contentment in God himself, regardless of what happens next. Something that's helped me, and maybe it'll help you, is to think of the wait as a training ground. That delay is where patience, resilience, and deeper faith are forged. It's like roots growing deep in the soil, getting strong for whatever storms might come. Abraham waited 25 years for his promised son. Joseph's time in the shadows lasted over a decade. Even Jesus waited until the fullness of time before fulfilling his own public ministry. Real transformation grows slowly in the dark, often when no one else sees. I know, it can be maddening. Sometimes you wonder if you've missed it, or if God even hears you. But what I've realized, and what Scripture keeps reminding us, is that the silence of God does not mean the absence of God. Even when you feel alone, he's right there, shaping the story, preparing the way, and preparing you. Here's a gentle challenge. Try not to sprint ahead just to escape the discomfort. Waiting with faith means staying present, doing the next right thing, and letting go of the urge to force a shortcut. The people who grew the most in Scripture, like David, Joseph, Abraham, were all experts at this. They kept serving, kept hoping, and kept trusting that, at the right time, God would move. Let's not forget, delay is sometimes God's way of protecting you from something that could have devastated you if it came too soon. Or growing you into the person who can handle his blessing well. There are things we can only learn in the waiting room. Things about ourselves, about patience, about God's goodness. As we wrap this up, remember, the silence of God does not mean the absence of God. Even in the quiet, he's working. If you're in a season like that, I just want you to know you're not alone. Waiting is hard, but it's never wasted. Trust, rest, and keep your heart open. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Echoes and Paths. TikTok listeners, find more encouragement in our YouTube link, right in the bio. Thanks for journeying with me today. Even when the wait feels endless, the story isn't over. Keep trusting something good is unfolding, right in the quiet.